started, Rebecca.
No worries. Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Ahmed. I am the founder and chief energy officer of Energetic Impact. I attended the University of Southern California for my undergraduate and majored in public relations and minored in business and communication design, and really excited to share with you all things energy today, coming from the Energy of Success. This is my upcoming book, as well as a lot of specifics around how you can advance your career. So thank you so much for having me, and I'll kick it off to the next presenter.
Great. I think that would be me, Ella. Is that correct?
It sounds like me, actually. So I'll get started. Hello, my name is Janet, and I'm currently a product marketing manager at Meta, specifically working on the VR product, and previously have worked at Snap on the AR product and at Apple as well. And I'm very excited to share more about my experiences in different corporations that I've been in, but also in startup experiences. And so, yeah, excited to be here. I'll hand it to the next person.
Hello, hi, I'm Emily. I'm the Senior Director of Research and Evaluation at Thrive Scholars, which is a nonprofit that supports high-achieving low-income students of color and first-generation students to get to and through college and into their careers. I love what I do. It kind of all started as a first-gen low-income student at Harvard when I got really interested in understanding the experience I was going through. And so I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in sociology, worked in nonprofit for a few years, and then a PhD in human ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I'm excited to share more.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lupe Arenas. I'm a first-generation Latina and proud daughter of immigrant parents. I also came from a low-income family. However, nonetheless, that did not stop me from pursuing higher education. I went undergrad California State University Northridge with a Bachelor of Arts in Gender Women's Studies and a minor in journalism. It was there when I realized that I had a passion for journalism. And so I worked in the field of journalism for a little because I had 4 internships all within a journalism, and that's what opened the door for journalism. I worked in radio, marketing, and social media. And then COVID hit, and so I got laid off, and I'm like, okay, the goal was always to get a master's degree because a master's degree, not quite really helping my career, I would say, because in journalism, you don't really need a master's degree, but I went for it because that was always a goal. So I applied to USC and I got accepted, and I also got I was a fellowship for a scholarship, one of the 5 fellows for the Scripps Scholarship, which is and helps students that are really interested in journalism. And I did my Master's of Science in Journalism, graduated in 2020, and I was extremely involved both in undergrad and in graduate school. And I'm excited to be here and joining everyone else as well.
Hi guys, can you hear me? I'm unable to share my or start my video. I don't know if that's okay. Okay, sorry about that. We've been having some technical difficulties. Okay. So my name is Jessica. I am a recent graduate of the Viterbi School of Engineering. I completed my bachelor's in May 2022, and I just completed my so that was my bachelor's, completed my master's in December of last year. I started working at Rivian Automotive in January. I was very involved with the USC racing team, the Italian club, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, the Latino Alumni Association during my master's. And I was also involved with the USC Caruso Catholic Center on campus. So I'm happy to be here with you guys and share some insights.
Hey everyone, great to be here today. My name is Joy, can go by she, hers. I'm a Marshall Business School graduate, just graduated in 2022 with a master's in social entrepreneurship. If you don't know what social entrepreneurship is, it's basically learning how to work with and build social businesses. Unlike a lot of the panelists here, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first went into grad school. I just knew that I wanted to pivot out of my current career in advertising, and I didn't know what I wanted to go into. But long story short, I had a lot of great resources at USC and Marshall that helped me define who I wanted to be, what I wanted to go in, what kind of company I wanted to go into. And so now I'm at Accenture as a consultant working in smart cities and mobility innovation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carmen Herrera. I'm a Marshall grad, class of '89. I was born in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico, and grew up in San Diego. My parents were both blue-collar workers, and I'm the only one in my family to complete a college education. I also hold a CPA license. I started my career at Ernst & Young as an auditor and spent 15 years in accounting and finance roles with Paramount Pictures, Univisa, Hughes Communications, and the Sempra Energy family of companies. I held financial analyst to compliance roles up to division controller. Midway through my career, while at Sempra, I transitioned to quasi-operational roles as a director overseeing supplier diversity, which is under the supply chain procurement organization, managed facility operations, fleet services, corporate real estate, and land management. Then around COVID, at the end of 2020, I took the leap of faith and started pursuing my own business. And now I'm about to launch a juice enterprise aimed at brain health, Sabi Juice, with a focus in underserved communities. And I couldn't be more excited to be at this juncture of my entrepreneurship journey, and we'll happy to share more. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for all of the panelists introducing themselves. I'll go ahead and pass it on to Kimberly to go ahead and start us off with the panel discussions.
All right, ladies, thank you all for those wonderful introductions. So now we're going to get into some questions. Again, just quickly, my name is Kimberly. I'm a career engagement intern here, and we can go ahead and begin with the first question. So the first question surrounds a topic on challenges and struggles that you face. So the first question will be, what are some unique challenges you have faced as a woman in the professional spaces, and how have you navigated them? And if we can start off with Carmen, you can go ahead and answer.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So, I believe that, we're always evolving and that change is necessary for growth. So my angle will be more as it relates to pivoting in my career. And I've had two key transitions. The first one was when I wanted to transition from transition into a non-financial role. I thought to myself, who's going to give me an opportunity after 15 years in similar type roles? I thought I needed to go back to school to gain new skills. So I went through the process of applying to MBA programs. I got into SC and then the other school across town. I also started, making the rounds at Sempra and reaching out to VPs and directors, basically anyone that would talk to me about their departments and what have you. And I was a manager at the time. So finally, one VP said, you should speak with the head of HR. So I met with the senior VP of HR and shared my desire to be considered for other roles across the organization. I mentioned my transferable skills to her and the success that I had in my current role. So about 6 months later, I get a call from one of the VPs that I had met with, and he was offering me to apply for a newly formed corporate compliance position. It was a newly formed organization, and it would be a lateral move, and a manager at the time. So this ended up being my first non-financial role after 15 years in accounting and finance. So I took the lateral manager position, leading the records management program for the organization. And peers, I remember peers and colleagues asking me, why did I take this position? Carmen, you have a CPA license and your capabilities are underutilized. Well, little did I know that after a successful implementation of this program, I was promoted to director. So that was lesson number one. And then my second key transition, as I mentioned earlier, was leaving corporate America to start my own business. I knew I didn't want to retire from corporate, so I started planning financially. I didn't know when I would pull the trigger, but then when COVID hit, I knew it was time to follow my passion. I wanted to make a career impact or a greater impact in my community and give back. So one individual in my family has Asperger's, and the other one had depressive episodes during COVID at the age of 10. I knew then that brain health was where I wanted to make an impact and focus my attention. So Sabi Juice was born. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Carmen, for sharing such impactful pivots and how successful they've been now. So now if we could pass it on to Joy to also share some of her different challenges she's faced. Joy, if you want to go ahead.
All right, thanks, Kim. I guess to start with, those who have gone through Marshall know how hard the school works to get you into a company. But one of the things that Marshall doesn't really teach you is how to get yourself out of a layoff, or what might happen even after 1 year of that successful company experience. That was my experience. I worked really hard during Marshall to get into where I am now at Accenture. And you might know with the news that the economy is going really down since the end of 2022. So one of the impacts that Accenture had was multiple rounds of layoffs. And that's on top of their annual performance reviews, where they go through the people, the workforce, and they cut a certain level of percentages of the workforce to keep the shareholders happy. And this sounds really brutal, but that's really the reality of a lot of big companies and public companies. And here I was last August, just hit 1 year at Accenture, thinking, I'm totally fine, I'm new. I was performing pretty well, so I have nothing to worry about. And then I got the call saying that I was one of the people that got laid off. And I didn't believe it at first. I was literally sitting in this seat getting that call on video, and I didn't comprehend it. And so after the call was done, I just was like, what just happened? And it took a really big toll on me mentally. And I looked back on all the things that, all the milestones that we worked on: graduate, get in, negotiate a good offer, get on projects. And I thought I did everything very well and successfully as I was taught. But how could this happen to me? And I think everyone who's gone through a layoff make it feel very personal, because it is. So what I did was, okay, I processed that information and thought, to them, it's not personal. I'm just one of many, and I'm just a number. So I'm going to play the game on them as well. If I'm just a number, if I'm one out of however many, can Accenture not make room for one more person in the people they keep? So I started flipping that mindset, and I felt like I had a really good chance to fight for a position within the company. I'm open to change within the company. I'm open to transitioning into a different role, or looking at a different industry within the same company. But I just felt like I owed it to myself to shoot for my shot and at least have one conversation about it. And I'm sharing this not because this is the know-how to get your way around the company, or this is how to talk to someone, but I want to share mostly because this was a great lesson to me on how to position myself into a position of power. I think all of us, coming from woman with an X background, first generation, low income, a lot of these different intersections tell us how to cave in and how to make ourselves small. And so my thought was, okay, I need to ask for help. I need to put myself in a vulnerable position get someone to pity me and help me pull myself out of the situation. But instead, I talked to multiple people. I talked to my therapist, I talked to my partner, I talked to my family and my community around me. And I realized that I have a lot of strength to bring. And instead of caving in, I have to put myself in a position of power and tell them exactly why they're losing out by having me laid off. And that was really scary. I'm gonna be really honest. So what I did was I talked to the head lead of my office and I went in with the mindset of what would a straight white man do? Not me, but what would a straight white man do? And it wasn't to be like, my initial thought was, hey, so I don't know what happened, but I really need this job. Can you help me, please? But once I had that mindset shift, the words out of my mouth was, listen, I think you're missing out on a talent like me. Can you find someone who can project manage a team of developers, talk to business, and speak Korean with the Korean clients? Because I can do all of that. And if you can name another person in the office, like I would understand your rationale. And he couldn't list one single name off the top. And so now my problem was in his hands. It was no longer my problem to fight for just by myself, but a different person could fight for me. And long story short, he was able to find another project, another industry for me to get transitioned into. And I was able to find another place, find another home, and find really great people to work with, a different client. So I'm at Accenture now still. I'll share more a little bit about it later on, but it's really not about can you have your job back, but it's about like how to develop through that journey.
Thank you, Joy, for that clear example of how changing your mindset can lead to such a great outcome. And I agree with everyone in the chat who's praising you right now. Definitely a great moment of strength. If we can pass on this question to Jessica, you can share a little bit about your insight on this question.
Yeah, of course. So, given the fact that I've recently graduated from USC and I was on campus not too long ago, I think some of the challenges I faced started off at USC actually. So, again, just a reminder, so I am a mechanical engineer, so I did mechanical engineering for both under and graduate degrees. And so I think we all know that engineering is a heavily male-dominated industry, more specifically in mechanical and aerospace. So I often found myself working for design teams or school projects with groups where I was maybe like the only girl or one of few girls. And so I'm going to bring in the college atmosphere as one of these professional spaces, because I really do believe that, like, regardless of, you know, what school we go to or like where we're at, like once you're like setting yourself up to you're setting up your career at school, like that itself is a professional space. So I did have a couple of incidents actually with some of the groups, study groups, or with when I was in design teams doing my work, where it was a very fine line of joking that I would find my male peers just like doing, where it was, I mean, not to I think we shouldn't sugarcoat these things because they like happen often, but it really was like inappropriate jokes, and I think that in some moments, you know, you find yourself in situations where you're thinking, well, they're just joking, like, do I say something? And especially when I found myself as like the only woman in the group, it was kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe I like stayed quiet until one day I had enough and I thought to myself, like, am I really gonna just sit here and let this pass? Because if I do, like, these boys aren't going to just continue acting and saying what they're saying in front of me. They're going to go on and say it on to like other women. And again, we are USC college students, like this is a professional atmosphere. We are like doing work. So, and I feel disrespected, frankly. So it was a moment where like I feel like I had to step up and be bold about it. And like tell them, like I don't think this what you're saying is funny. Whether you're saying it as a joke or however, like it's inappropriate. You got to call them out. So it was definitely a very like uncomfortable situation, because I had to step out of my comfort zone and say it, where I'm like the minority, like the only girl in the group. But out of experiences like that, I think you just have to be bold, because no one else is gonna look out for me better than myself. And I also wanted to have this to prevent this from occurring to other women, right? Fortunately, in my last in the 4 internships that I've had, and since I started working, I haven't had any bad experiences so far. I am the only woman in my team at Rivian, which it's nothing new to me at this point. I'm either used to being the only woman or one or two or three other women. And I will say that the challenge in being the only woman in this like corporate space is a little different. Although I'm very grateful that I've been treated with respect and all. I often find that sometimes my own like thoughts and self-doubts get in the way. And that has to do with the fact that I discovered my passion and interest for engineering later than most of my male peers now in the corporate field. And I mean, even back in college did, a lot of these guys were fixing cars and doing a lot of mechanically inclined things that from an early age, whereas I wasn't. And currently my role is actually very hands-on. I'm like, sometimes I'm in a computer, like typing away and doing office related tasks. And other times I'm in the lab, like with a wrench in my hand, and I'm taking things apart. And though I feel like I got good training from my involvements at USC, when it comes to like mechanical aptitude, due to my involvements in like design teams, there's been times where I've been asked to do a couple of things, and I kind of like freeze, because I think to myself like, shoot, like I'm expected to know how to do this and I don't. And then I let self-doubt get the best of me. I've had those moments where all of a sudden I start thinking like, man, like I feel at a disadvantage, because I'm sure, I mean, besides the fact that these professionals have been working here and have been doing this for a longer time, I've also like I start thinking too about like, well, they've probably also been doing this from like a much younger age. But I've tried my best, and I think I've succeeded at like stopping those thoughts from taking over, and instead challenging myself to think more about like, I am struggling in this task, not because I am incapable of doing it, not because I don't know, but I am struggling because I am like anyone else who is starting something new, and I'm starting to climb this steep learning curve. So instead of I've put myself out and like made those around me aware that I'm interested in learning, and I'm taking that initiative to learn as fast as I can. So this has definitely required a mindset change, where it's like I am learning, so it's okay that I don't know, versus I don't know because I'm a disadvantage. That's kind of like where I started off, just feeling like I was disadvantaged. Now it's more like, it's okay, I'm in this learning process. And like I've had this conversation with other female engineers in other industries, and like I was telling one of my friends who also just started work at Boeing, and we both agreed that like at the end of the day, we have to be kind to ourselves sometimes, and not compare ourselves so harshly to some of our peers that are around us, and especially like guys who've been in the industry for like so long. So those are some of the challenges that I have come across, but I think it's definitely a journey, and I've learned from them, and I feel like it's only made me stronger.
Oh yeah, thank you, Jessica, for sharing such uncomfortable experiences. Sometimes being the only woman in the room, but definitely changing that into more of a positive outlook. So thank you for sharing that. And I want to open it up to any of our other panelists if they want to share some experiences they faced in the professional space.
Yes, I'm happy to chime in as well. So Janet again, and I think it's really important for us to lean into industries that might not be so female dominated. And I think that is not only for us to learn and to be present in all the, having a seat at the table where it matters for the future of whatever that industry is, but also for you to be one of the role models for other people to be inspired by. And so I think personally for me, having gone into venture capital, as an investment associate at age 24. I was the youngest and the only female in the venture team at the time. And I still remember a fourth month into my job, I opened the door to invite one of the entrepreneurs I was coming to pitch for a fundraise. And he looked at me and said, "Yes, I would like sparkling water." And so I think it was just kind of a nod at thinking that I was one of the executive assistants or secretaries. And I still remember the expression on his face when I gave him the water and said, "Hey, we should come upstairs and you can still tell me more about your startup." And so I think there's always ways for you to exhibit your skills and to have humility, but at the same time hold strong whenever there's miscommunications or misunderstandings at hand. And then I would say another example of just being a female in a male-dominated industry is I actually headed into the gaming industry and kind of virtual reality, augmented reality around 25, 26, and I've been in it since. And so it's been about 8 years. But at the time when I entered, there was no commercial kind of headset products out there. There was a developer kit that was created by the Oculus. And so, I was one of the very few females to be in a room trying these, developer SDKs on and going through the motions of learning what the devs were working on. And I don't come from a technical background. I actually started at Apple doing finance and then head into product marketing. And so, there's a lot of doubts in what you are going to bring to the table. And I think for us to realize is that there's a lot of transferable skills that you can hone in on, but also the reason why I wanted to head into AR VR is because I saw that this is a next medium which people can self-express who they are beyond a 2D surface. And so as we head into those immersive 3D worlds, if there's not enough women at the seat of the table of product design and product development, what kind of product will we be creating and will it suit for females? And so there's a lot of studies around motion sickness being a lot more prevalent in females. And so how do we kind of cater to that audience? Or how do we think about cyberbullying? How do we think about, sexual assaults being in an avatar form? And so I think it's very important to raise these conversations because not only are we advancing tech, but there's also humanity at hand and how we leverage these technologies to connect and to socialize and to live live part of ourselves kind of in a digital realm. And so I would just kind of encourage everyone who may not be super, jazzed about being a minority in an industry that they're about to enter. I do think it's a bit difficult if you're one of the first, but it definitely is worthwhile because there's going to be more doors open for those that follow after you. So yeah, excited to see what everyone will be up to after graduating.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing your very transformative experience and showing us that, with changes, good things can come. So thank you all for sharing some of the different unique challenges that you faced. But along with the challenges, I can assume that identities have been part of these challenges. So our next question is going to be, what other identities do you have besides being a woman? And how do they contribute to the unique challenges that you faced? How do you leverage these identities to succeed? And with this, we will pass it to Rebecca to share a little bit on this question.
Sure. So y'all, my dad still has no idea what I do for a living. Like, I am Pakistani. He tells everyone I'm an accountant. In my keynotes to college students, I have an entire bit about it because as a Pakistani, oldest of 11, so oldest of a litter of kids, when I didn't go into the doctor, lawyer, accountant route, I was on my own. And so I didn't have someone to bounce off ideas. Like, I'm so thankful for USC for all of the like career services, but even at that, like, that wasn't fully developed compared to what it is now. And now we have transparent, like, compensation transparency, and we have all of these tools to really help us succeed. But in the beginning, what do you think of when you think of like a Pakistani girl? It's like quiet, you say yes, you're like very polite. It's very much this like societal, vision. And then I also was coming from hospitality, and hospitality is about serving. So speaking your voice or saying no or getting upset about something was not welcomed. And so how that impacted me is I was paid less than I should have ever been paid. And it was really hard when I realized, holy cow, I'm making $20,000 less than the person who did this same role than me, who didn't even have a master's, and not to say this is not diminishing his work. It's saying that I didn't know how to communicate my worth. And coming from HR, you would think, oh, that's a natural, but HR was very separated then. It's very much people services now, when we understand a lot more of how we integrate. And so to overcome this, I became an expert in compensation. I started studying it. I started going to webinars. I started going to like meet with that team, and I ended up doing a TEDx on it. Like I became so passionate about how do we create compensation equality, and how do people vocalize what they're worth. And I coach upon this all the time. And so I think that the beautiful thing about when you have these identities, wherever they're stemming from, you can learn how to take that as an opportunity, which we've seen that as a common theme, and amplify and vocalize. Like, the quietest ones, we have the loudest voices sometimes when it comes to finding that passion and finding the way we can help other people, so that someone else doesn't come to the table and say, oh my goodness, like, when you think of the hundreds of thousands of dollars each year, when you do that, like the math, you're like, oh my goodness, I never want someone else to be in those shoes. So I think that's where I can share a little bit about different identities, and how I took that to create an opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing some of your identities with us. If we can have Lupe now also share some of her identities within the workplace and how they have affected.
Yes, so very similar to Rebecca as well. For me, I originally in high school thought I would become a psychologist to become a high school counselor, because my high school counselor was amazing. And so that where, I got a little inspiration. However, it wasn't until my second year in undergrad where I was just like, this is not exciting anymore. Like, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And so I went to my counselors and I went to my parents and my family, mind you, the youngest of 5, the only one who had decided to go to higher education and pursue it. And when I told my parents and my family that I would essentially switch my major from psychology to journalism, they were a bit worried in the fact of, well, do you see what's happening to journalists in Mexico or in other countries? I'm like, but we're in the United States. They're getting killed and this and that. And they're like, well, it doesn't get paid as much as you would as a psychologist or a counselor. What exactly are you going to do as a journalist? And so they had a lot of questions, which was and is completely normal. However, while they had a lot of questions, they were also there pretty much to also help me in that way, because while yes, they were raising so many questions, they still were there to help me in whatever way they could. However, when I first got into my first career job, and that was in 2017, I was working for a social media marketing as a coordinator for this media publication, which as of right now, if you've been watching the news, that person is under fire. Very well known in the music hip hop space. He used to be my boss, but every time every time he would walk into the meetings, he would only greet the men. The women in the group in our meetings, he would be just like, hey, how's it going? But that was it. Like, it was very quick. And while my experience there, aside from that, and just him like, amplified sexism with comments and stuff like that, other than that, my experience working there was great because I learned a lot of stuff that allowed me to eventually transfer out from that job into radio. But having him around and just having him always take the side of the men when it came to meetings here in Los Angeles and in New York when we would have our meetings, it was very noticeable. But to him, it was just like, I have the power and I can do whatever I may please. But nonetheless, everyone in those offices at that time would rally together and we would like, okay, so this is not getting addressed by so-and-so. Let's take it to HR. HR would essentially, have meetings with him and whatnot. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience because you hear about all of these stories as you are, in undergrad or in graduate school, navigating to that career, but it's not until they happen to you that you're like, okay, how am I gonna manage this? How is it gonna, will I lose my job? And which goes back to what Joe said earlier, you have to speak up to yourself. And when you have either a team of people that also can help you, or if you're only the one voicing your opinion, at the end of the day, it's 100 times better than just staying quiet. It's scary. You don't know what could possibly happen, but it's those circumstances and those situations that help you and have helped me be where I am now, because I have, I've voiced my opinions in various occasions. So that was one of the very first experiences that I had and challenges in the workforce. And if you aren't aware of the news, his name is Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. I worked with him, so everything is coming to light.
Wow, Lupe, thank you for disclosing and sharing such difficult experiences with us, but I'm glad you have been able to find strength within that. So now if we can also hear a little bit about Emily's experiences or different identities that contributed to how you've experienced the work, please.
Yeah, I like this. So I'm loving what all these powerful women in the room are saying. So like, thank you everyone for sharing your stories. It's interesting because my background is low income first gen. So there's a part of me that felt like instead of being too quiet, I was always too loud or like too opinionated or like it showed on my face what I was thinking. So I spent a long time kind of in undergrad going from my low income background to Harvard. It was a lot like USC, right? Like really, really wealthy, really white, and thinking, and kind of navigating that space. And so ended up kind of leveraging my own identity as research, right? To try to figure out and learn more. And then by the end of college, my whole goal in life had been to finish college. So I got to the end of college and I thought, whoa, wait, I got like 60 more years of life to figure out. What am I going to do? And so I hope you're not in that position, but I went into the nonprofit space and then higher education for, for the PhD. And it was even more so. My cohort was smaller, it was whiter, it was all women. And so kind of navigating that. But I had this experience, so I'd grown a lot. But I think two things resonate, that are important is one is finding spaces and places where your identity is valued and you leveraging it as an asset, which is what a lot of folks have already talked about. And then the other part of I had this cool idea, but I'm not sure if it'll come. But I think it's, in upward mobility, which a lot of us are experiencing, you then, or bicultural, different male, female, people of color, white spaces, things like that. You get the ability to navigate spaces and understand that emotional intelligence that a lot of folks don't necessarily have. And so I think leveraging that as an asset has been something that's really helpful for me too, because I can see perspectives that other people don't have. And I'm sure that everyone else on the panel has had that experience as well. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing a little bit more on the idea of upward mobility. That's something that's definitely in a lot of our minds. So if we can open up this question to any of the other panelists that would like to contribute, we would love to hear from you as well. Maybe Joy, you would like to contribute a little to this question if you're open to. Okay, if not, I don't know if she cut out for a bit. Okay, so we can just move on to the next question and y'all can contribute to that one. So if for the sake of time, we're gonna have to move to our last question. And our last question is, what is one piece of advice you have received that you would like to share with all of our audience here today? And this is open to anyone who would like to respond.
I'm happy to start. I have heard this from one of my mentors before, and she's told me to always invest and take a chance on yourself, because you'll always regret if you didn't. And so, be that the education that you want, the hobbies, the self-improvements, if you want to learn about another, industry or head out to another, career pivot or whatnot, I think you really just need to double down and invest in that because it will pay dividends down the line. And personally, for me, I think this comes through therapy and coaching as well. And so it's not only about professional development, but also personal development. And that overall just shows up in the workplace as much as it does in your personal life. So would encourage that.
I would 100% amplify that. And I would say get clear on what you value. So discover your values, define your values, energize your values, because we can put a lot of energy into something that won't serve us, right? And so Janet's saying, like, put that energy into you. And I love that. But if you don't know what you can bring to the table yet or what you want to invest in, that's where you need to do that back end work. So then you can have confidence to make really strong decisions of where you want to go. And that might be a lot of different ways, right? We constantly are evolving. But at least you're putting your energy into the right area versus saying, oh, why did I do that? Like if it's in line with your values, like boom, go for it. So that would be my addition to Janet's.
To add on to what Janet and Rebecca were saying, I agree with them. And I think that something along the lines of what they've been saying for me is intentionality. So I've kind of looked up to a couple of older women that I have in my life in, like in different industries. And the most admirable characteristic that they have that I really like try to embody myself is intentionality. And that comes with what they were saying. It's like, like know your values, know what you want, what you don't want. And honestly, just go out there. And the thing about like going and knocking doors and asking people, like do more than knocking on doors. Sometimes you have to tear those doors down. Like, and what I mean by that is like, if you know you want something, do whatever you can within your means to go after it, during USC, during this time of building yourself, building your career and trying to set up your life for a job that you're going to enjoy waking up and going to. In order to be able to get to that point, you want to be able to start thinking now, okay, like, where do I see myself? And if you've identified certain industries, certain people that are in a position where you would like to be, where you would like to know what it's like, and if that's something that you do see yourself in, reach out to them, do cold messaging on LinkedIn, like, and be very direct, like, I think that being direct will be able to put you in a position where people will help you better because you're going up to them and telling them like, hey, maybe I'm interested in what you're doing. Like, can you tell me what it is in more detail, like your day to day, like what do your tasks look like? And that goes along with the lines of networking, like use the people in your atmosphere and in the places that you're in, ask them questions, like don't shy away from anything that may come to your mind. It's like, oh, I wonder how they got to where they're at, or like just ask away any question that you have. Try to be bold, try to be very direct. For me, coming in as a freshman and a sophomore student, like undergrad, I was very shy. And I think that like once I realized like, man, I'm not gonna get anywhere with if I don't really like go out there. And so I really challenged myself to get out of my comfort zone. And if I did it, I believe you guys can do too. You got to go out there and ask, ask, and you shall receive.
And just to echo off what everyone else said as well, another piece of advice that I've received early on in my career is to not compare your chapter 11 to someone else chapter 27, because we're all in different spaces and paths of life. So if somebody else is doing something that you essentially want to do, let that inspire you and motivate you to want to continue going. And along with that, allow yourself to really take in what you want and really push that and fuel you to really be the best that you can be in whatever aspect of life and career you want to take. And then another thing is that you're often gonna fail, right? That's inevitable. But don't take that personal. Don't let that be like, well, I didn't do well in X, Y, and Z, then I probably won't do well in, the next thing. Allow that to just be like, okay, I didn't get it right the first time. Let me pick right where I left off and continue going. So don't be so hard on yourself. You'll figure it out as you go. No one has it perfectly planned. And as long as you continue to show up for yourself, guess what? You're already winning, because one of my favorite hip hop rappers once said, "It's a marathon, not a sprint." And that was Nipsey Hussle. So remember, continue going, continue pushing, because eventually you'll get where you want to be.
Well said, Lupe. I would just add that, if you're starting, I'm not sure what year you are in at USC, whether first year or senior, but I would say don't overthink where you start your career, because as it's been said here, we gain a lot of transferable skills along the way that could be applied to other roles. So don't let that, again, don't overthink it if you don't know where you want to start your career. The other thing is that, put in a different ways, that do not let a closed door keep you from opening another. That closed door timing may not be right. It doesn't mean that door will not open in the future. It just means that maybe timing isn't the right time. So I would say, perseverance. And again, a lot of just good things have been shared today. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
One thing I'd like to leave everyone with is we all have our individual experiences where we're finding our strength in, but let's not forget that we have each other's collective experiences, us as women with an X, or as an Asian American, Korean, or Latinx, BIPOC, low income, all of those, even if we're not personally experiencing that, with deep empathy and sharing those experiences, we have collective power. And in this world, we always have to fight for ourselves, and we have to think for ourselves, put ourselves first. But I think that's what really sets us apart, that we are willing to share those experiences and make it into a giant pool that everyone can tap into.
I love all this advice. And mine was going to be tactical and jumping off, kind of similar to what Jessica was saying about the networking. And I heard this really struck me was like the best time to look for a job, or the best the best time to look for a job is when you don't need one. And so that those informational interviews feel a lot less difficult when you're in college, or when you're in grad school, or when you're still in your job. And so building that network is really important, and you don't have to be looking for a job to talk to someone. You could just be curious and relationship building and growing that experience and learning.
Alrighty, if anyone has anything else to add, please feel free now. And if not, then I want to thank you all ladies for such wonderful advice, for all of your wonderful insights. I know on behalf of me and everyone on the panel, we appreciate you so much for your wonderful, wonderful experiences. And now I will hand it off to Ella to continue with the second part of the panel.